to day 4, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maria Dismondy. I'm a children's book author. I live here in Michigan, and I actually have a local psychologist today, Drew Yanke, to talk to us about resilience and emotional awareness. And he also is a part of Kids Empowered. I know he does work for their workshop, and I think he's like co-founder. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I'm not really a co-founder. Kimber was on yesterday, and she's my wife. She is the creator, founder of Kids Empowered, Girls Empowered, Boys Empowered. I deal a lot with the boys when we have programs. That's where I come to play with that. And in my private practice, I'm a local psychologist too. In my private practice, I deal with mainly boys. ADHD is kind of my sweet spot. You know, I'm not a genius when it comes to ADHD because it's just like anybody's genetics. You know, it's different for every single kid. Same with anxiety and depression. So I work with kids, but anybody has a family, I work with the families, even adults. When I come into situations with adults, maybe I'll get the wife to come in or a sister, whatever it may be, to help the system work better for my clients. So
fantastic. And, you know, Drew, you and Kimber have 2 children of your own. So I love when we have experts on that are speaking also from the parenting aspect. And how old are the boys?
Well, I actually have a daughter from a previous marriage who's 22. Okay. So
you have a good spectrum.
Exactly. So I have a daughter, 22. Her name is Taylor. And then Kai is 15. And then Keegan, our youngest, will be 11 come March because he wants to be designated as 11 already. So
it's like, oh, I'm 10 3/4.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Okay, sweet. So let's go ahead and jump in. So I love that you have a range of, you know, not just clients, but in your own home as well. So let's jump in to talking about resilience and emotional awareness and what we can do as parents and educators to help our children.
Great. Well, you know, the first place to start that I like to start is self-awareness. It's very important to understand where self-awareness comes from and what it is. A lot of people think, well, I'm self-aware, I think. Well, there's 3 components that I kind of put into place for self-awareness. The first being emotional self-awareness, and that's kind of saying to yourself, I recognize my emotions and the impact they have on my life. That's my emotional awareness. Second is an accurate self-assessment. Human beings love to think they're better at things than they really are. But to have a good sense of self-awareness is to be perfectly okay with your strengths and your weaknesses. And oftentimes when I meet with people privately and even in group sessions, I love lists. I try to keep them to a minimum as much as possible for a lot of people. But, you know, accurately saying, okay, 5 things you're good at. And a lot of kids say video games or something like that. But I often say, okay, branch out of that. Think about, are you good at math? Are you good at drawing? Something that's a strength, but also recognize your weaknesses, because twofold, if you recognize your weakness, you can say, I want to get better. So that becomes a point where you think, okay, I want to be stronger at this. But here's the thing too. I deal with a lot of kids, as Kimber does, that are picked on, that are bullied, or kids are mean. Now, if you know you're not good at something or you have a weakness, it doesn't become a sore spot for you. I personally can't play basketball. I played baseball for 25 years. I can anything sport-wise. I'm kind of blessed that way, but I can't play basketball. So if I play, I know always tease with kids. I'm like, if you play basketball, you're gonna be like, Coach Drew, you're awful. I'm like, yeah, but I still have fun. You know, I don't feel it as a vulnerability. I know it's a weakness. I can either work at it or accept that I am what I am with it. So that's part of that. And the last is self-confidence, and that is knowing your self-worth and capabilities. That's a little trickier. A lot of people have self-doubt, but where I think too, if we have an accurate assessment of ourselves and we're aware of our emotional self, we can build that self-confidence. We can build the sense of self-worth and your capabilities within that. And so when we look at increasing self-awareness, it is one of those things where it can be built upon. It is not, you're at this level, sorry, Charlie, until you're in the grave, this is the way it's going to be. What we want to do for kids, especially it can happen with kids of any age, but if you have an opportunity to do kids with under 10, because that's where they're really kind of exploring the world and wondering who they are, is creating a home environment, creating an environment so that he or she can really express their feelings, because that's an important aspect.
So they're crying, they're expressing their feelings, and you're not shutting it down. You're not saying, stop crying, you're acting like a baby. They're crying, you're letting them cry. What are you feeling? Why are you upset? Tell us about it.
Well, and that's the thing too, Maria. I'm great. It's good that you asked that, because a lot of times parents, and there's times when, look, as a parent, if you're in Target or you're at Walgreens or whatever it is and something happens, you don't have it. You're like, but then you have to, kind of accurately assess what you're feeling. Are you embarrassed? Part of it is, that's a real emotion. If your child is going to cry or be upset, there's a real emotion behind it. Now, it could be because they didn't get a piece of candy or something like that. But I often...
We're back.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we were talking about creating an environment and allowing your children to have space for their feelings, his or her feelings. And a point that a lot of parents talk about is they feel the need to solve the problem right there and then. And you don't have to.
Thank you.
Yeah. The magic is that, guess what? That moment will come up again and again and again. So I tell a lot of parents that sometimes the environment is not the place to solve the problem. It's to address that, hey, I know you're upset, but we'll talk about it later. Move through it. And you can always circle back around at night, right before bedtime, especially with young kids when they're quieter and they're calming down at the end of the day, and say, remember when we were at the store? What happened? Kind of get into a dialogue. A lot of parents oftentimes forget to have dialogues with their kids. They think, well, do as I say, I'll tell you what's up. They want to hear feedback, but there's not a lot of listening going on, active listening. I hear what you're saying. I know how that feels. Empathy training comes from the parents. If you're empathic with your children, they'll understand empathy and move through it too. So, and that leads me to another part about it in creating self-awareness is having your child know who he or she is, what they like and what they don't like. They're kids. They're human beings. They don't have to like everything. I hate fish. I'm 52. I still have people to this day telling me, well, if you just cook it this way, I'm like, no, I don't like fish.
Done with it.
I'm done with it. And that thing too is that, we do want to push their bubble. We want them to experiment and try different things. But there's also things that we have to understand. They have a brain and they know where they're uncomfortable or comfortable. And again, where you have that dialogue, and having an understanding of, for us to know who they are, but also for them to know that too. Because self-awareness is, I like this, I'm good at it, I want to further my, guitar, whatever it might be. Or if they're not so good at it, then you could say, okay, how do you want to get better? Is this something you want to focus some energy on to get better at?
How can I help you? Yeah.
Exactly. What can I provide for you?
My husband always likes to remind me, we don't own the children. They are their own human beings and they have their own thoughts and they're allowed to have those thoughts. And then yesterday, I should just interject, after school, I brought out all these magazines and my 6-year-old, my 8-year-old and my 4-year-old was running around, but we created vision boards.
Awesome.
And so I just said, hey, think about what you love and what you want more of in your life. And I said, we're not talking toys. We're talking like experiences.
Beautiful.
So that was really, really cool. And one of the things my daughter, my 8-year-old, who I feel like we've been kind of butting heads lately, she had a coffee cup on there. I'm like, do you like coffee? And she said, no, I put it on there because it reminds me of you.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So anyhow, I think...
and I, we're going to probably talk over each other once in a while too here. But that's something too, that kind of gets into the resilience where I talk about a little bit in a few minutes. I'll be talking about that. And that's one of those things where I like that vision board, that storyboard that allows kids who can't write but picking things out to kind of give them a vision of what they want in their life. Again, not toys, not material things, but other things for that too.
Yeah.
So that was
they did it cool. For an hour. And
that's amazing, isn't it? You're like, oh, I would never get my kid to sit for that long. And like, they love it. So, as kids get older, personality tests are kind of fun. You don't have to go to a psychologist or licensed, but you can do some online. Look, they're not going to be wholly accurate, but it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea. They're fun to do together. I believe in journaling. I believe in journaling because a lot of times, our brain traps things. It is our best, worst enemy sometimes.
I have 21 completed diaries.
Woo! Go girl.
I've been doing it since I was a little girl, and
Wow.
it was very therapeutic for me. I had a lot of childhood drama and tragedy in my life, and it was like everything to me. And now my girls and I have shared journals where we write back and forth.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, like letters to each other. Yeah, I know some parents that do that.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that is an ability and a gift you're giving your kids, Maria.
It's
It
fun.
really is. Yeah.
It is fun. And with my 8-year-old, I feel like we